Welcome to Sex Positive Gaming. I'm Annie, and today we're going to look at Melody. This musical romantic visual novel is available for PC, Mac, and Android on their Patreon. Whenever I do a game review, there are 3 questions that I try to ask myself. Am I serving my viewership with an independent take on the game? I think by now we all know that I am a shill for this industry. It's just that I'm an independent shill. I don't accept builds or keys from developers, and all of my reviews are either based on public builds, free builds, or versions that I've personally paid for. I've got this crazy idea that ethics in video game journalism includes not accepting games from developers. The second question that I ask myself is, does this further my goal to help normalize adult content in video games? I've made many videos touching on the social benefits of games like these. They improve mental health and reduce crime. There are various, less respectful ways that I could talk about each of these titles that would probably get me more attention and more views. I choose not to do that because I really want to show that we can play and enjoy these games without looking like a pervert. It is normal to like video games, and it is normal to like video games with sexual content. Most importantly, it is normal to like a wide variety of flavors. And the third question I ask myself is, can anything I say be used to deplatform or bully a creator? Sex Positive Gaming is still a very small channel, but it is growing. At some point in the future, if I can avoid getting banned by YouTube, my voice could have enough influence that I could help bring attention to new awesome developers. Or if I'm not careful, I could inadvertently cause a creator unnecessary hardship. What does this have to do with Melody? I mean, I could have done an entire review of Melody where I just talk about the game and only the game. That is rare for me, but I have done it in the past. However, does just talking about Melody without talking about why Melody exists best serve you all in this community? Does it best serve my goal to help normalize adult content in video games? I'm pretty sure that nothing I say is going to impact the developer, Mr. Dots. They're one of the most successful creators on Patreon. I do, however, worry about how this video will be judged by YouTube's moderators, but I cannot in good conscience not talk about Melody without talking about Mr. Dot's first title. So sit back and let me tell you the tale of success, censorship, and compromise that led to the creation of Melody. That's right, I'm going to finally talk about the controversial game, Dating My Daughter. Mr. Dot's Patreon was launched in October of 2016 and was part of that 2016 wave of new Western games. By the end of January, there were over 1,300 subscribers with almost $12,000 in monthly revenue. The corruption-themed mechanic, solid renders, and taboo nature made this game a runaway success, and placed Mr. Dots at the top of Patreon's adult gaming category. However, Mr. Dots was living on borrowed time. I talked about the Patreon purge that started in October of 2017 in my OnlyFans video. Many developers were able to successfully retool their game's content to fit Patreon's new guidelines. Mr. Dot's game was rebranded as DMD, and had a lot of content removed for the Patreon build, but Patreon seemed to be set on making this game's removal their offering to our oligarchical overlords. I mean, the whole reason that Patreon was removing this kind of content was that it was treating fictional characters like they were actually humans. So wouldn't this be Patreon committing human sacrifice at the altar of MasterCard? Yes, I know I have a Patreon page and I understand the hypocrisy surrounding this topic, but I never said I was perfect. On January 26, 2018, Mr. Dots released a statement that I will link to, because I'm already pushing my luck with YouTube by even talking about this. I mean, I'm not endorsing or advocating anything, just talking about the timeline surrounding the creation of these games, but it is an imperfect system that we're dealing with here. In the statement, Mr. Dots says, Patreon has practically forced us to create another game in order to keep the page alive. So we can't offer DMD there anymore. It was either that or seeing our account getting banned. 2 months later, we are presented with Melody. I know this is not the most auspicious origin story, but it's still way better than anything DC Comics has come up with in the last 20 years. Was this a tamer version of DMD with the more objectionable content removed? Yes. But that doesn't make it a bad game. These are very similar games. They are both gradual corruption-themed romances between characters with a rather large age gap. In Melody, the main character is now a mentor as opposed to a family member. In both cases, you are still shaping and guiding the growth and development of the main female character, but now it's focused on a music career with multiple endings depending on the branching paths that you choose to follow. I mean, even the visual corruption mechanic is basically the same. A flower is replaced by a keyboard in the top right corner. As opposed to petals darkening with sexual experience, it is now keys of the keyboard. Which totally kills the deflowering pun that was obviously an integral part of this gameplay mechanic. Graphically, this game looks really decent with great animations that are silent. Fortunately, the soundtrack is good with a wide variety of genres. I know that music is a hard to justify extra cost for small developers, but I really appreciate the effort to have good music in a game that's about learning to make good music. Flavor-wise, this is a mostly heterosexual male experience with lesbian, group, pregnancy, and power exchange. The main relationship is slow to develop, and while there is a corruption mechanic, I have a really hard time classifying this as having the corruption flavor. This is a romance. And while there are harem options, if you want to unlock the perfect ending, you need to treat this like a romance. And I really feel that is the saving grace of Melody. What began as a stripped-down version of DMD made to save their Patreon became a heartfelt and sometimes poignant romance. Life presented the developer with adversity and they overcame it and delivered a sweet and sensitive story about a character who had to start over, overcome adversity, and hopefully find love along the way. I hate that we have to suffer shaming, censorship, and the constant worry of being banned in this industry. But sometimes that injustice can have a silver lining. Melody is a delightful romance that would have never existed without the prior success and the hardship of the developer. I recommend it to anyone looking for a slower-paced, slice-of-life visual novel. Let me know what you think of Melody and the journey that brought this game to us. Seriously though, I'm not sure how many comments will make it past the filters, so good luck. Hell, I'm not even sure how many people will actually get a chance to see this video. We'll just have to wait and see. Until next time, no shaming, just gaming. Thanks to all this month's supporters on Patreon. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you.